Welcome to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, where today's conversation uncovers why even top-performing sellers can unknowingly sabotage their next quarter by drifting from the habits that drive consistent sales success. You'll hear Kevin and Sean break down the subtle warning signs of declining prospecting discipline and how a simple weekly commitment can reshape your entire pipeline trajectory. They'll also reveal a powerful KPI that predicts your future revenue long before the numbers show up in your CRM. Stay tuned because the next few minutes might change the way you manage your time, your pipeline, and your career.
Every salesperson has a moment where they're either riding high or hitting a slump. What's so interesting about that paradigm is that they're often in sequence with each other. Good sellers can have the moment where they look out the windshield and realize they've sold through their pipeline, and it's been really busy and hectic getting all those signatures, getting all those projects and products scheduled. But then they wake up on a Monday morning after a really strong Friday month-end, quarter-end close and realize, shucks, there's not much in the pipeline. Today, we want to talk about good sellers and some bad habits and how to recognize and doing some self-diagnosis on how to recognize if you're skipping some of the traditional good sales behavior, and then we're going to call that a bad habit. Sean, always good to hear from you. I'm excited about today because we're going to help some people recognize when they're possibly sliding off, but we want to catch them before they get to the bottom of the trough.
Thank you very much for that, Kevin. I think this is a great topic because I think we've all done this. I know I have done it. I know, Kevin, you've done it. We've talked about that before. Even as professional, long-term, some gray hair, lots of gray hair, in my case, salespeople, we've been in the case where we just weren't doing the right things on a regular basis. So I think that every salesperson, regardless of your management structure, the company you work for, you have to be self-managed. You have to be a self-starter. I think it's one of the strongest classical skills that a salesperson needs is to be a self-starter, to be able to say, first thing in the morning, I got to get this done today, regardless of whether your boss is looking over your shoulder or if you even have a boss that can look over your shoulder. So there are KPIs that you can put on yourself. Not that you're going to put them on a dashboard, maybe you will, but not that you're going to have your boss look at them, and maybe your boss will. But there are things that you as a salesperson know that you have to do. And let's break up the job a little bit of a salesperson. You're going to spend some amount of your time talking to your existing customers. Are they happy? Do they need more of whatever you sell? Do they need another 5 widgets? Do they need another new product that's come out that you sell now? Whatever. So you're going to spend some amount of time talking to your existing customers. You're going to spend some amount of your time making presentations to new customers, right? And really working on solving their problem. But then you're going to spend some amount of that time working on finding new customers. And even if you are a named account salesperson, like your company gave you 30 companies to call on, and that's your territory. They gave you those 30 companies to call on because they want you to grow within those companies. They want you to prospect into other divisions, other locations, other facilities, other subsidiaries, that company. And typically, if you only have 30 accounts, those are going to be bigger companies, but they want you to go sideways into those companies. And that's prospecting. Others of you are more dirt-based or territory-based. You have a county, a state, a couple counties, a city, whatever, a zip code. And you're going to be driving down the road, looking around, doing the searches online, doing the stuff on LinkedIn to try to find people that you can talk to. And so you're also going to be prospecting. But it's really important that as you look at your business and try to get away from the bad habits that Kevin was just mentioning, that you divide them up into those 3 things. Am I prospecting enough? Am I making enough proposals and presentations to new customers or existing customers? And am I making sure that my existing customers are happy and they're going to be good referrals for me for the future? Kevin, did I miss one?
At the risk of overload, I think it's really important for us to also focus on practice we've got to train and invest in our own self-development. Because self-development, especially if you're in a environment where you either don't have a manager, meaning you're the only salesperson on the team, maybe you're a player coach and you're responsible for forecasting and selling and maybe even some delivery and some customer service. Like that situation exists in a lot of small businesses. That situation exists in every solopreneur practice. All of these areas of, hey, I'm doing all the things to land new business. Are you working on how you're landing it? So practice makes easy. And you've all heard me, if you listen to any number of episodes, you've heard me say it, practice makes easy. So I want to emphasize doing the outbound work and figuring out what buckets are being filled, but also how you're doing that work. I'm running a little long on my description of training, but you need to train yourself. And if you've not done that in a while, that can come in the form of listening to podcasts. Check the box beside that because you're doing it now. Signing up for a class. There are all kinds of self-study classes on LinkedIn, self-study on peer community groups. There's a lot of resources out there for you, so you shouldn't be deficient or have to break the bank just to get some new knowledge. Think certifications. If you're a new leader, have you invested in your management skills versus sales skills? You have woken up today or recently in a promoted position that you've never been in before. So if you're going from a seller to a leader of sellers or sales manager, you may need to polish some skills on budgeting, interviewing, performance improvement plans or performance corrective actions, or just holding people accountable, having effective meetings. Like those are just some skills that a sales leader needs. If you're a salesperson in a new industry, are you plugged in and are you trained on all the fundamentals of the industry to understand what it is you're talking about selling into, whether it's business process optimization, manufacturing sales, or professional services sales? There is a mountain to climb to gain intelligence wherever you go. Venture a guess, Sean, and again, I'm getting along here in the tooth with talking about training, but training is so important. It's foundational for the future growth of you or your practice or your sales environment. Every seller is basically their own business owner. You're accountable to yourself. You're accountable to others, hit your quota, but you're accountable to yourself because your quota represents your ability to earn. You're creating your own W-2 numbers. You don't just show up and get the salary unless you've got a really interesting compensation plan. You've got to go sell something and sell the value in a way that gets somebody to want to buy more from you and refer you to all their friends. Because that's that prospecting, referral, and cross-sell, upsell, 9 square exercises, all the things that Sean and I talk about on these podcasts. You've got to do the work.
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing up the making yourself better as a budgeted part of your time per week, per month. You just need to make sure that you're doing it. I think that's really good. I'm going to throw one more activity in that learning category. Artificial intelligence is something that is incredibly big right now. You hear about it, like you really can't even turn on the TV anymore and not hear about it. If you look at the stock market at all, you hear about artificial intelligence all the time. But it's going to affect the world of sales. It's not going to replace salespeople, but it is a productivity tool, and it's a lot of massive productivity tools, and we can get better. And the bad thing is everything's changing so quickly. So if you're not staying aboard, you're going to be behind really bad. So spend some time working on those skills as well. But let's talk about, for just a second, some KPIs that might make sense for your business. My favorite KPI that I use as a predictor of how I am going to do in the future is something that one of my bosses about 25 years ago taught me, and that is customer interaction hours. How many hours are you actually with a customer, talking to a customer and talking about their business? It's a really simple metric. You can spin it a wide variety of ways, but the standard sales call is about an hour long. When you go and you make an appointment with somebody, you're going to talk to them for about an hour. So if it's a really long meeting, like a 2-hour demo or a 3-hour multi-departmental prospecting conversation, that's worth 3 hours or 2 hours, right? So if it's an hour long, it's 1 hour. If it's 2 hours long, then it's 2 hours. And then you multiply that by the number of people that are actually in the meeting with the customer. So if the typical customer meeting is 1 to 3 people. If you think about all the meetings you've done, all the customer interactions you've done, it's always one person, that's a given. But sometimes there'll be 2 or maybe 3, and that's pretty typical. However, when you get to 4 or 5 or 6 people in a meeting, there's probably a meeting where you have had to kind of pull people together, make the meeting bigger. There's a bigger agenda. There probably is an agenda that you actually had to agree to before the meeting. So if you say a typical meeting is 3 people, and that typical meeting length is 1 hour. So 3 people for an hour, that's 1 customer interaction hour. If you have 6 people or 5 people for a meeting, and it lasts for about an hour, that's 2 because you've gotten 2 sets of people and you've got 1 hour length. So I know it sounds a little complicated. I'll put it in the show notes to explain how to get there a little bit better. It's really important to think about the quality of your meeting measured by how many people are in the meeting and how long that meeting is. And the longer the meeting, the better the meeting, the more likely you will have to prep in advance and the more likely you will have things to follow up afterwards. So you can only do so many. You might do a meeting with 15 people for 2 hours, which would be, as I just described it, that would be 10 customer interaction hours. But in order to pull off that meeting, you had to do 3 or 4 prep calls with your team on your side, and there were 5 or 6 action items that you had to follow up on, each one taking an hour after the meeting because they asked these great questions. So those are really valuable. I talked a lot, Kevin. Help me out. What else did I miss? Because I'm going to let you focus on other KPIs that you think are important.
It's good that you're focusing on that level. And I want to take that as here's what you can do, salespeople, because you got the show notes to see where you stack up on measuring an actual outcome of your effort. I want to take your attention, salespeople, and focus it in a separate but related area. And that's recognizing when you're starting to not do some of the habits that make you a good seller so we can prevent you bottoming out, right? The goal here is not to over manage and have you create a bunch of dashboarding kind of efforts, but we do want you to recognize when you're starting to trend downward from a future gains perspective. When are you starting to not do the things that are going to cause you to miss next quarter's quota, even though you're having a really good quarter this quarter? This is systemic, and where this shows up often is Sean and I work with teams. We get to a budgeting season, we get closing out a Q4, and then we got a really strong thought and budgeting effort for Q1, and then we get to the end of Q1, and a lot of people miss quota in Q1. And that's not because they're bad at budgeting. It's because all of their effort in Q4 to close consumed all of their time and calories to build the pipeline that's going to allow them to have a good Q1, which means this is where good sellers and bad habits collide. Good sellers close well in Q4, end the year on a high note. But in Q1, the bad habits of not prospecting and doing all the behaviors returns a desert of sales. So they end up starting out the new year behind the 8 ball. They start out below target. So they've got to do all these extra efforts just to catch up in 2, 3, and 4. And because they're good salespeople, they can typically do it. But for you, salesperson who's listening to this, I want you to think about that right now because we're in Q4 as this episode is released. Have you been doing prospecting, meeting new people? Are you carving out time blocks on your calendar to go out and do original thought, domain expertise, publishing? Are you cross-selling, upselling, asking for referrals? Are you doing all those things now that are beyond just focusing on the deal to be closed by the end of the year? Because if you're not, now is actually the time to focus on those efforts to ensure that you have a good Q1 and early Q2. It's also not a bad time to do the best thing you can do for one of the other legs of your pipelines. Let's go down to marketing. Ask them what they're working on. What is their end of year push? What is their beginning of the push? You can use the term, what's on the roadmap? What should I be planting seeds for now? Like we're seeding the clouds now to be successful in 2026, because right now it's Q4 of 2025 when this episode drops. These are the kinds of things that we want you as a seller to be aware of so you can stem the tide. You can stop the behavior before it gets critical. We don't want water to rise and flow over the dam. I'm using all these analogies just to spark ideas for you as a seller that, hey, As a seller, I'm responsible for meeting and exceeding my quota. That is your job, is to go and sell. It's not anybody else's job to do it for you. It's your job to go activate people to help you achieve it. Marketing, sales, executives. Executive fatigue right now is going to be high, but you still need them involved in your critical relationships, critical deals, customer service, quarterly business reviews. There's a lot of things you can do. And I'm intentionally listing a bunch here because when we think about all the things we could do, we have to parse all that out and say, what are the things I can do before the end of the year to ensure that I've got a trajectory that's up and to the right for next year? So that's a lot. If you're listening to this now driving, now's not the time to take notes. Now's the time to hit the bell button on the podcast to go back and flag and listen to this part again, because Sean and I have in this episode listed out a lot of things you can do, math you can longhand parse out to know if you're doing things well. Measuring the inputs to ensure your outputs are right, measuring the early activity for later production. This is the science of selling. It's beyond the art, it's the science. Are we doing the right things over and over again that we know will return success? So with that, there's a list of things you can go focus on and do some additional research for your own training and development to make sure you have a great Q1 in 2026. With that, happy selling, and we'll see you next week.
What a powerful conversation today. An episode packed with insight, rhythm, and the kind of practical wisdom every seller needs in their toolkit. One of the standout lessons was Sean's deep dive into customer interaction hours, a simple yet remarkably predictive KPI that measures the true quality of your sales conversations by combining meeting length and participant count. It's a metric that doesn't just reflect activity. It reveals whether your pipeline is being built with intention and whether you're actually engaging the right people at the right depth. And of course, Kevin and Sean didn't just stop at strategy. They gave you that crucial actionable step. Carve out protected time each week for prospecting, because if you wait until the quarter is closing, you're already behind. Do it today, before the urgency of daily business pushes it aside, and you'll set yourself up for a stronger next quarter. If you ever need help with sales management, or accelerating the growth of your organization, Sean and Kevin are only a message away, and their contact information is waiting for you in the show notes. You can also join the B2B Sales Lab, a community built for salespeople and sales leaders who want straight answers, shared experience, and resources that help you hit quota consistently. Its link is also in the notes. We'll be back at the same time next week, ready to help you sharpen your craft and strengthen your revenue engine. Happy selling!